Welcome to the First Responder Wellness Podcast. My name is Conrad Weaver, and I'm so glad you joined us today. Hey, before I introduce today's guest, if you're a first responder leader and you want to level up your leadership in 2026, I want to invite you to something very special. On December 3rd at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, I'm hosting a free 1-hour mastermind preview where we'll be diving into real strategies to help you motivate, inspire, and lead your team with confidence. You're going to hear from myself and from my good friend, Dr. Phil Bequee. You've heard him here on the podcast before. Phil has trained elite teams from the U.S. Special Forces and the U.S. Marshals and many other three-letter agencies. This is a practical, high-impact leadership training designed for first responders, and it won't cost you a dime. Spots are very limited, so head over to the link in the show notes and grab your seat for December 3rd at 12 noon Eastern Time. Now, let's get on with the show. Today, I'm talking with Director Andy Wilson, Ohio's Director of Public Safety. Andy oversees thousands of sworn and civilian professionals and is on the front lines of statewide initiatives for safety, training, and wellness. He's here to talk about the real layered toll of public safety work and the simple, practical steps leaders can take now to protect their people physically, mentally, emotionally, and relationally. Stick around. This one is full of boots on the ground wisdom, and you don't want to miss it. Here's my conversation with Andy Wilson. Well, Andy, welcome to the First Responder Wellness Podcast. It's so good to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having me. It really is an honor to be here.
So you are the Director of Public Safety for the state of Ohio. Tell me what that is.
So it's a cabinet level appointment. I work directly for the governor, and we are in charge of everything related to keeping people safe in the state of Ohio. So we have 10 divisions, about 4,000 people. My biggest division is the State Highway Patrol, and that's roughly about 2,000 people. About just shy of 1,600 uniform. We have authorized 1,600 uniform positions. Now, just like everybody else in the world, we don't actually have those bodies in those positions. Right. But that's my biggest division. And then I also have Homeland Security. I have the State Emergency Management Agency. I have the Ohio Narcotics Intelligence Center, the Ohio School Safety Center, so the Ohio Investigative Unit. So just really anything that relates to public safety and keeping people safe. Now, the other side of it is we have about 960 agencies here in the state of Ohio, local agencies in the state of Ohio. And I do a lot of work on behalf of the governor with those agencies across Ohio, talking about various initiatives. We're heavy on violent crime reduction right now. We do a lot with technology, pushing a lot of the governor's ideas with respect to how to keep people safe down to the locals and kind of understanding what their issues are and leveraging resources to help them with their issues. We're not a state police state, we're State Highway Patrol. So we don't have, our jurisdiction is somewhat limited, but we certainly want to be making sure that we're working with our partners at the local level to do what we can to make sure that everybody's safe.
Well, I know whenever I'm driving across Ohio on Highway 70, I make sure to abide by the speed limit because the State Patrol takes that very seriously in Ohio.
They do.
Fortunately, I've not had firsthand experience in that, but I've had other people who have said, man, those troopers, they're right on top of you.
They are. And you know what? The governor is passionate about keeping people safe on our highways. Yeah. Our governor lost a child in a car wreck, and he just doesn't want anybody else to have to endure that loss, that grief, that trauma. So he's been very passionate about keeping people safe on the highway. And obviously enforcement is a big part of that.
Yeah. And a couple of years ago, you guys had a really tragic bus accident there on just east of Columbus, right? Was that last year?
We did, yeah. Yeah, that actually, believe it or not, that was at the school that my kids went to.
Really?
So that was 2 years ago, okay. I think is when that was. It was 2023, I think is when that was.
Yeah.
And a school bus, very first day of school, was about a mile from the school coming around a curve. A car went left to center, hit the back of the bus, pushed it over the side. There was about a 4-foot drop off for drainage. The bus ended up flipping and ended up throwing a lot of kids got hurt, but it threw one kid out of the bus and he was unfortunately killed.
Wow. So first responders, as we know, they see a lot of things, they face a lot of things. So how do you, as from a top level leadership position, how do you ensure that your first responders are taking care of themselves?
So I think across the board, as law enforcement professionals, as executive leaders in law enforcement, we have an obligation to ensure that we are pushing wellness really across our organizations. And I think, again, as I go across the state and really across the nation, it's like anything else. You have some agencies that are doing it really well. Again, across the profession, I think that law enforcement executives have an obligation to push wellness, and really, it's for a lot of different reasons. Let's talk. First of all, it literally can save your life. If you are if you're a law enforcement officer and you have to go hands-on with somebody, you better have the fitness to hold on until backup gets there, or the strength to at least control that situation so that you don't get hurt, you don't get killed. So that's part of it. If you have to chase somebody, if somebody runs on you and you have to chase them, you want to be at least at a baseline level fitness where you're not blowing a hammy or throwing out your back, or having some kind of catastrophic type injury that puts you on desk duty, or worse, actually puts you out of the career. The other thing too is, again, you don't want to have a heart attack. If you have to chase somebody, or you're in a situation where your heart rate goes up, you don't want to throw a clot, end up having a heart attack. So first and foremost, your life literally may depend on it. The second part of it is, how many times have you heard this story? Somebody does an entire career in law enforcement, they retire, and then within a year, 2 years, they're dead. And there is no doubt that it's the combination of the chronic and the acute stress. So it's the acute stress that you get from responding to calls and being in these traumatic situations on any given shift, but then you space that out over an entire career where you're dealing with it really day in and day out. That combination of chronic and acute stress just takes a toll on, let's just talk physically. We won't talk mentally yet. It just takes a toll on you physically. So heart disease, diabetes, insulin resistance, sleep problems, weight gain, like all of those issues that are directly related to stress. We know, again, science has proven without a doubt that exposure to stress without off-gassing that stress has incredibly negative effects on your long-term health. And as a result, again, you come out of this career, you haven't taken care of yourself the way that you need to take care of yourself because your executives haven't pushed it, haven't made it a priority. And you're fighting your retirement, which should be the best part of your life, man, sailing into the sunset. You're fighting disease, you have a heart attack, have a stroke, something like that. So let's go another step further when we're talking about wellness. Let's talk about the mental and emotional side of it. And again, I'll cover this more probably later, but the exposure to the trauma of the job, the psychological trauma of the job, the things that you see in any given shift. And obviously the big ones, we talk about critical incidents are the big ones. You're involved in a shooting, or you're involved in a crash, you're involved in something that is just terrible, that is extremely traumatic. Those are the big ones, but really it's death by a thousand cuts is what it is. It's the day in and day out exposure to people who have been victimized, people who have been beaten. You just see so much death. I was a prosecutor, but I was a prosecutor that was assigned. We went out with our detectives all the time, and just the number of scenes that I've been to where I've stood over dead bodies of young men, man, really who had their entire life ahead of them that's gone, and to hear their family members just right outside the crime scene tape, screaming and crying, and the moms and the loss, and that psychologically and mentally, man, that it hardens you. First of all, is what happens. You end up building calluses. It hardens you. But really what happens, you push it down, and it just takes a toll on you, especially when you're dealing with kids. I specialized in prosecuting child abuse cases for years. And if you don't think that kind of stuff takes a toll on you, man, you're just kidding yourself.
That's a whole group that many people don't think about are the prosecutors or the attorneys that are involved in these things. And I've even thought about, the MEs and medical examiners who have to go to those scenes, day in and day out. And I've personally never thought about, what you guys face as prosecutors, that, you're on scene, even if you're not directly on scene, you're looking at photos or video
Right.
content from the scenes, right?
Right. And then you're dealing with the families,
Sure.
the grieving mothers, the grieving sisters, the grieving kids, who are in your office just basically begging for some sense of justice. But really it's anybody in the system who gets some kind of exposure to this trauma. It's vicarious trauma, really, is what it is. You end up bearing the trauma of somebody else, or at least absorbing some of that trauma. Dispatchers are a big one. Those dispatchers, they get a mom, whose baby just fell in a pool and is not breathing, and they're having to try to work the mom through that situation, trying to get help there as fast as possible. The baby ends up dying. Man, that dispatcher a lot of time owns some of that trauma as well. So, so that's what I'll call the mid-level trauma. So you have the bigger events, which are your critical incidents. You have the mid-level trauma of just the day-to-day dealing with death and injury and loss. But then you also have this trauma as well. You have the trauma of trying to help people who a lot of times don't want to be helped, or are unwilling to help themselves. Man, you see this domestic violence all the time.
And that's got to be frustrating, right?
Oh yeah. You talk about taking a toll on your mental and emotional well-being. You can only go to a domestic violence victim's house so many times and beg her to leave that abuser, and see her back with him 2 days later. And before, again, you build up those calluses. And what happens is you start to be like, well, if she doesn't care, I'm not going to care. And it hardens it. It's a psychological defense mechanism, really, is what it is. You can't deal with the fact that you're not able to help somebody who needs help, so you start to harden yourself around that. So again, it's or dealing with the same criminals. This is one. Like, my experience with cops is, they truly want people to not break the law. So it's not like we just want to go arrest. Right? Yeah. How about that? We don't want to just go arrest everybody, throw everybody in jail. But it's also, you understand that, okay, you broke the law this time. Hey, look, Bob, I know you're down and out on your luck. I know you're strung out on drugs, and I know you did this. You're going to take your lumps. I'm going to arrest you. You're going to go to jail. You're going to have to do your time, or whatever it is. But man, I really want you to be better, man. I want you to be successful. I want you to stop using drugs. Most law enforcement officers that I deal with have that spirit. They have that heart, man. They really want the people that they serve, including the criminals, to be better, man, to get out of a life of crime. And man, I go back to the people that I prosecuted, or I was a juvenile court probation officer before I went to law school. And I can think of, you're talking hundreds, if not thousands, of people that I dealt with. I can think of 5, 10 who actually maybe turn their life around. And, the trauma of the failure or the mental distress of the failure. So when you add all of those different layers, law enforcement and the public safety professions are just so unique in the type of stress that they deal with, and the type of trauma that they deal with, that if you don't have good wellness techniques, if you don't have good wellness tools in your toolkit, man, you will end up sick out the backside of your career. You'll end up getting hurt coming out of the career early, or you'll end up, addicted to something, or unfortunately, too many times you'll end up killing yourself. And that's what we see.
I had a chief on my show actually this week. Her episode was up, and she put in this wellness culture within her department, a small agency down in Virginia. She said after they implemented these things, they saw a 16% reduction in call-in for sick.
Yes. Yeah. Look, we know without a doubt that exercise, and when I talk exercise, I'm going to talk not just going to the gym and blowing it out at the gym or going for a run. That's a huge part of it. But I'm talking wellness across it. So diet, exercise, all of the components of wellness. it is without a doubt the best medicine that you can have. It's better than any pill that you can go to. You go to the doctor, man, and they treat you for depression or anxiety or something like that. They're going to give you a pill. They're going to, which has its own side effects, its own issues. Man, without a doubt, if you're just intentional about your wellness, your whole person wellness, and you will be better. You'll be less sick. You're going to be better in the way you interact with the citizens that we serve. You're going to be a better coworker. You're going to be better to work with. You're going to be you're not going to be as salty and sour. You're going to be a better employee. I mean, like, you're going to be a better spouse, neighbor, like all of those things, if you're intentional about taking care of yourself. The unfortunate thing is, a lot of times we're just not intentional about taking care of ourselves. Understandably so. We're reactive in nature. Man, on a shift, we're bouncing from call to call, paperwork to paperwork, court to court. Like, we are so reactive and just putting out the fire that's right before us that we neglect ourselves. And when we neglect ourselves, ultimately that ends up taking a toll on us and negatively impacts our ability to do the job, negatively impacts the community that we serve. It just ends up a lot of times being a disaster. Really.
So how can you take an officer who's maybe 10, 12 years in, they're in this place where they're just doing their job and they're kind of neglecting that side? How can you help them become intentional about these things?
Yeah. So I think really it's imperative on us as the leaders. First, the executive. So the chief, the council members, the sheriff, whoever it is, the director, whoever it is, has to be bought in. They have to create a culture where folks are allowed to do this stuff, where you incentivize folks to do it. Everybody's motivation is a little bit different. The other thing too is you cannot come at it with a one size fits all. Like, again, you can't all of a sudden just bring a CrossFit coach in and now everybody's doing CrossFit. Now, again, I'm not talking about, I'm a CrossFitter myself. So I'm not, there's some great things there. That is a really good program for a lot of agencies, a lot of people in the agencies, and there's great components of it. But that salty officer who's been on 10 to 12 years, who has let themselves go and has no interest in really exercising, you throw them in a CrossFit class. I'll give you an example. We did a program here with a fire agency, a fire department in Ohio, where we brought a CrossFit gym in, and it's all volunteer. So these guys, the firefighters volunteer. They did the very first workout was a 4-minute, it's called a Tabata, but it was a 4-minute workout. Not hard, not hard at all. I think there were some air squats involved in it, maybe some lunges. One of the firefighters got rhabdo out of just that 4-minute air squat, little Tabata type thing. Now think about this. That is somebody who in an emergency may be required to haul hose into a burning building, may be required to haul a citizen or a fellow firefighter out of that burning building. Like, we need that person to be healthy enough to physically do the job when the time comes. But clearly, you're going to have to start at the base level. So when you're designing one of these programs, I think you really need to assess your workforce, and you have to design a program that allows for people to kind of go at their own pace to scale their way in. So, maybe it's walking. Maybe you set an hour for the workout, and let's say you got 10 people on your shift. 6 out of the 10 are going to do a CrossFit workout. 2 out of 10 are going to walk on a treadmill. The other 2 are going to do some light weightlifting. As long as people are moving their body for that hour, and that's, again, I think it's important for agencies to probably designate somebody to be their master trainer. If you could have somebody that is really kind of assessing where everybody is, and because a lot of people don't even know where to start. Part of the problem with a fitness program, or part of the problem with a gym in general, is it's intimidating. You haven't worked out. Let's say you're 10 years in now. You haven't worked out since the academy. You haven't worked out 10 years. You're out of shape. Your ego is such that you don't want to go in there and shame yourself, and you don't want to, it's going to hurt no matter what you do. It's going to hurt. So you avoid it because of just the discomfort that comes from doing it. If you have somebody working with you, it's like, okay, we're going to ease in. We're going to ease in. Here's what you can do. And just gives you little bite-sized chunks like, hey, and then shows you progress through, and it should be the long game, man, through 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and just progression, sets actual goals and works on it with you. That's the way it should be. So from an executive leadership point of view, number one, you have to understand the importance of this. If you're a chief, a sheriff, you have to understand the importance of it. You need to identify your people that are your champions in the wellness space. And then you need to give them the mission of, hey, look, we've got to do something for this organization. But here are the parameters. It's got to be something for wellness. It's not going to be smoke fest for everybody. It's got to be something that's designed on making everybody better across the board. And then the other side of it is it's got to focus on all components of wellness. Like physical fitness is a big part of it. And like that chief you had in earlier, again, once you start focusing on it, I bet you not only will they have less call-ins for sick, but you'll also see less complaints, use of force type complaints. You'll see less internal discipline issues. You really will. It's because it's an off gasser for the stress. So,
someone once told me that healthy first responders make healthier decisions when they're at work. Unhealthy first responders make unhealthy decisions when they're at work.
No doubt. There's absolutely no doubt about it, because again, it's giving you somewhere for that to off gas that stress, for that stress and that trauma, which is huge component. Because the other side of this is anybody who's been in this career for more than a minute knows that trauma and that stress has to go somewhere. And unfortunately, if you're not intentionally engaged in wellness, a lot of times it goes into something that's a negative withdrawal from your wellness bank. So think of your wellness as a bank. What we need you to do is make small, consistent deposits every day, every week into your wellness bank. And I'll talk about the areas of that here in a second, what areas where you should be making deposits. But the other side of that is it's like a bank account. Like you can also make withdrawals from that account. And if you are dealing with the stress, the trauma of your job, of life, by engaging in negative behaviors, substance abuse, gambling, overeating, smoking, all of those, spending money, excessive spending of money, all of those things, like those withdrawals will ultimately catch you. You're ultimately going to end up bankrupt. And we unfortunately see that too many times. The other thing too is that both as executives and as coworkers, too often we see our fellows, our fellow coworkers, the people we supervise going down that path. And we don't speak up. We don't speak up. Or like, hey, they got something going on. That's not really my business.
Why do you think people don't speak up when they see their people going down these paths?
Because those are hard conversations. If we're going to be frank, those are hard conversations. You're scared. You're scared that the person's going to be like, stay the hell out of my business, or you treat it as, hey, that's their business, that's their thing. I don't need to be involved in that. And unfortunately, we just watched the train go right off the cliff. I've seen it. I'm guilty myself. I am guilty myself of watching coworkers that I knew were headed off that cliff just go right off the cliff, man, and not saying anything. So,
do you think that it's important to have, like, for example, physical standards within agencies? I know one police department in Texas that I interviewed the chief. He said they have annual physicals that they have to pass certain standards. And he said, it starts with me. I have to pass it as well. And so he sets these really high bar, and all his people are healthy because of it.
Yeah. So as a leader, number one is you have to set the example. Like you can't be do as I say, not as I do. You can't say, oh, hey, these are your standards, go do them, and then you not make them yourself. So not only should you as a leader meet the standards, you should be exceeding the standards. Really, that's the bottom line. But I believe, and again, I work with a lot of different agencies. The agencies that have some kind of physical testing component, whether it's annually, whether it's every 2 years, they seem to be in better shape. Not just physically, but they just seem to be, their standards seem to be a little higher. Agencies that have no physical component at all, a lot of times, just don't look that great. They got issues. They got issues. So I am a big proponent of having some baseline physical testing components that you have to do. I just had this conversation this morning. I was in the gym this morning over at the Patrol Academy talking to a guy who was going through, we call it our GXT. And here at the Patrol, they have to take it every 2 years. And what you see sometimes is you see guys who, 2 years is 24 months ago, 18 months and don't do anything. And then all of a sudden they got their they got their GXT, and for 6 months they're crash dieting, they're playing catch up. I'm almost to the point, and their physical fitness component is in the testing is in their contract. So I can't just wave a wand and make this happen. But I would almost like to see them go to every other year, and not every other, every year testing. So our GXT it's pretty in depth. There's like 5 or 6 different components that you got to do. On the off year, I would like to see just a baseline. I don't care, some cardio and some basic strength testing. So it could be push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, and a run. It could be something like that. But I think that would at least keep everybody true and holding the standards throughout the 2 years, as opposed to just kind of crash dieting or crash cramming for the exam type thing. I also think as we look at what physical fitness standards should be, I'm all over the board. I would like to see 1 year where we measure fitness, so cardiovascular fitness and muscle endurance and muscle strength. But then I would also like to see maybe on the off year, the other year, us do functional. So let's measure some stuff that's actually functional with your job. Is that a shuttle run? Is that I don't know what that looks like, but something that may pertain to your ability to actually do the job, getting out of car and sprinting, or something that simulates subduing or taking somebody into custody, that type of strength. So I think that I really kind of want to start looking at that stuff here in Ohio with respect to the way we're doing that. So,
my friend Jason Harney, retired sergeant with Las Vegas PD, produced a documentary that's part of my toolkit that we offer. It's called Risk Lock, and it's about police use of force and using martial arts training for ongoing training for law enforcement. And his premise is, so oftentimes they have to pass this thing at the academy in order to become certified as an officer, but then that's the last training that they get.
Right.
And so now they're 5 years in, now they got a guy that they're trying to take down, and they haven't practiced those things. So how important is that continual practice of these methods, maybe takedown methods, or even some kind of light martial arts training, to stay on top of things so that you can be healthy and actually ultimately live longer?
Yeah. So listen, I have no martial arts, no wrestling background. Since I've been the director, I've been going over to the academy and learning some of this stuff because I number one, I want to take advantage of everything I can while I'm in this position. Number two is I fully want to understand what our guys and gals who are going through the academy, our guys and gals on the road are learning, and what they may be called to use when they get out on the road. So it's just better for me as a leader to try to understand that, so that again, the policies that I'm putting into place actually reflect the needs of the streets. But here's the thing that I have learned in this space. If you are a trooper, if you're a deputy, if you're an officer, and you're on a call and somebody puts their hands on you and you got to go hands on, At that point, it is too late to realize that your training is insufficient. It is. You have got to have the tactical and technical competence to do what you need to do to protect yourself and to either hold on long enough for backup to get there or to subdue that suspect. Man, your life depends on it. And as law enforcement executives, as leaders in law enforcement, man, we are negligent. We are doing our people a disservice if we are not pushing them to be training in this space. I think once a week. I think because they're perishable skills.
Yeah,
they're literally perishable skills. When I go roll with these guys at the academy, sometimes my schedule gets busy and I can't get over there for a month. I can't get over there for 5 weeks. Man, it's super rusty. I go over there. It's like I'm starting all over. You go 5 years or you go 7 or 8 years and the only thing you got in the academy, you're done. You're done. And I'm telling you this, this is what I've learned just from rolling with the instructors. If you don't know how to fight, if you don't understand that and you grab a hold of somebody who actually does know how to fight, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
You're in trouble. And with the proliferation of MMA and some of these martial arts that you've seen over the past 10 to 15 years, chances are you may grab a hold of somebody who knows what they're doing. So it is absolutely imperative for you to be doing this training. If your agency doesn't offer it, you need to go find a gym where you can get in. Again, the bare minimum should be once a month. And remind me to come back to what the ideal training plan for wellness would look like for me. But let me talk about this in the defensive tactics space. We know without a doubt that an officer who is confident in their ability to go hands-on is an officer who is less likely to have excessive use of force complaints against them because they're engaging in rational based decision making versus emotional or fear based decision making. I'm confident that I can handle myself in this situation. I'm going to be more likely to de-escalate. Yep. Because I'm not scared. Everybody's scared, but fear is not taking over my decision-making process. If I don't know what I'm doing or I'm not confident, I'm scared. And now fear is starting to take over. The other thing too is if I don't know the tactics or the techniques, I'm more likely to engage in blows or something that's going to cause more damage to the suspect than if I actually am able to put them in an actual hold or a submission or some kind of tactic that allows me to gain a dominant position. So we know again that not only does it protect the officer, but it actually ends up protecting the suspect, protects you. Agencies that have robust defensive tactics programs or hands-on training type programs, those agencies pay less in excessive use of force claims. There's no doubt about that as well. The other side of it is it's just good morale. Again, I went over and rolled this. I told you I was at the gym this morning. I went over and rolled this morning, man. And when we're done, we're bro hugging each other, we're high fiving each other. We're all sweaty. And it was such a good way to start my day. My endorphins are running. And look, I got skull drug across that mat. Those instructors over there knocked the snot out of me, man. But I'm better for it. You just have to. You have to set your ego aside. That's a big part of it. A lot of people are scared they're going to get hurt. It's scary, man. It is scary lining up against somebody who is better than you.
But then again, if you're training on a consistent basis, you're going to have those skills.
You are absolutely. And what that does is it gives you a little bit of confidence. So again, because I like to get in the trenches and experience this job the way the people that do it do as much as possible. So I went over. We have something called a HIT exercise at the academy. We got a class in right now. The last couple of weeks of the academy, they have to do an actual simulated hands-on incident. So you fight a red man. It's not really red man because I'm not in a red man suit, but you fight. So I've been training. So I've gone over and fought. Now, this is my third hit. So earlier this week, I went and fought my third hit. When I look at how I felt a couple of days ago when I fought compared to a year ago when I fought my first time, night and day. Absolute night and day. And I'm telling you, I'm not even that good. My tactics aren't that good, but just the confidence in knowing what to expect, and the confidence, even when I found myself in a vulnerable position, there was no panic or anything like that. That only comes with reps. That only comes with repetition. The other thing too is you got to make sure you're working with somebody who's good. The beauty of it is, a lot of people are scared they're going to get hurt, they're going to get dominated. But if you have a good instructor, that instructor's not going to shame you. That instructor's not going to, they're going to, when they're not going to hurt you, man. They're going to put you in a position where you may feel uncomfortable, but you just tap your way out of it. There's a benefit. There's a definite benefit to putting yourself in a position where you're uncomfortable and then overcoming that. You just get better. And too many people are unwilling to endure the discomfort.
We don't learn anything on the easy days.
No. And if you avoid discomfort, man, when a situation arises, a real world situation arises, you're not going to be prepared.
Right.
You're not going to be prepared for it. So
there's a YouTube channel called Yes Theory, and we watch them all the time. A bunch of young guys that have this channel. They have 12 million subscribers or something, but they have a motto called "Seek Discomfort."
Yeah.
Where they put themselves in situations where that makes them uncomfortable, but they've grown from that.
Yep. So I do a lot of leadership talks, and one of the things when I do these leadership talks, I talk about is, look, the only true growth, true personal, professional growth only comes from putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. And a lot of people avoid that for two reasons. Number one, it's scary. Like, if we're going to be vulnerable, let's really talk. It is scary to be in a position that's uncomfortable. You don't know what the outcome's going to be. You don't want to fail. You don't want to be exposed as a poser. All of those things that psychologically you want to protect yourself from. When you're in a position of discomfort, man, you're vulnerable. You literally are vulnerable. And a lot of people just are too scared to put themselves in those positions. The second reason people don't seek uncomfortable positions is because it's laziness, really. Like, it's hard work to push yourself outside of your comfort zone. It's hard work to do something you don't really know how to do. It's easy work to do something you know how to do your job that you've done for 5-10 years. You're really kind of on autopilot, man. You don't even have to think about it. To do something new, to challenge yourself, is very difficult. And it requires a lot of times study or practice or reps that really is just work. It boils down to work. And a lot of people just don't want to do that work. A lot of people want to set themselves on cruise control and do that. The problem with that, man, is you deprive yourself of the growth that comes with overcoming that discomfort.
Yeah.
And man, like, you'll be better. You'll be better if you come out the backside having grown.
Because what you do today impacts your tomorrow.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. That's everything we do shapes who we are. Everything we do today shapes who we are tomorrow. Yeah. And it goes both ways. If you avoid discomfort, if you take the easy route today, it makes you less prepared for whatever's coming tomorrow. Right. If you choose to take the hard route, again, it may be you're trading short-term discomfort for long-term growth is really what you're doing. It may be uncomfortable right now, but you'll be better for it down the road. And a lot of people just can't bear that short-term discomfort.
Yeah. Something we learned that. So 3 years ago now, actually 2 years ago, I rode a bicycle across the country promoting my film, PTSD 911. And my buddy John and I, for 2 months, in March and April of 23, we trained like crazy. Every day we got out and rode our bicycles because we knew we had 3,400 miles to ride, and we knew that if we didn't do that hard training, that we would not be ready and we would fail. Yep. And when we were hitting some of the hardest, mountains in the Rockies, we were so glad we had spent that time on the bicycle seats training.
Yeah. Had you not, you may not have made it.
Yeah. It'd have been way more painful than what we would have wanted, So you mentioned your ideal training plan. So what is that for you or for your people?
So let's go for an agency. And again, I know that there are there are a lot of issues that affect the ability to do this. And the issue we deal with is personnel strength. We just don't have the personnel to cover the shifts, boots on the ground. That's where we need people. Unfortunately, a lot of times agencies are just reactive in nature. We gotta cover the calls. And I get that. They're right. We have to cover the calls. But if your agency is in a position where you can be proactive in wellness, let's just pretend it's a 5 day, 8 hour workday. That's your work week. If you could figure out how to overlap your schedules so that your officers could get 1 hour per shift for training, 3 days a week, that would be physical training. And it would be structured physical training. Everybody would have something, a plan that they do. And again, it would be catered towards them. So 3 days a week would be physical training. 1 day a week would be an hour of defensive tactics, hands-on. And then 1 day a week would be mindset or professional development. And again, that's so key. So we spent a lot of time talking about physical fitness in the scope of wellness. And we haven't even gotten into the diet side of that. You know, making sure that you're putting good stuff in your body. There's an agency here in Ohio, the Independence Police Department. They do wellness almost better than anybody that I've seen. But one of the things that they did is they got a couple Blackstones, and they do food prep. They got a bunch of Tupperware, and they allow their people to come in and do food prep. They put it's all healthy food. They have a refrigerator there. They put their food in the refrigerator. And then if I'm coming on my midnight shift, I grab my lunch out of my meal out of the refrigerator. I throw it on an ice pack. And then instead of, doing roller dogs and Mountain Dews at 2 o'clock in the morning, I have something healthy there that's pre-prepped for it. So you got to make sure you're putting the right stuff in. So that's part of the physical fitness component. So when you talk about physical wellness, or you talk about whole person wellness, physical is part of it. That's diet and exercise. So we spend a lot of time on that. The second part that I like to talk about is mental growth. Now that's different. Then that's not going to see, your peer support. That's not going to see, a counselor or something. That's all important. I'm going to talk about that here in a second. What I'm talking about is literally growing your mind. You have to continually work your mind. Pick up another language. Pick up a musical instrument. Pick up some kind of certification. Like test yourself. Learn something. Become a DRE. Become study for your detectives test, whatever you need to do, man. Just keep learning. Listen to podcasts or audiobooks, or read books that are development oriented. So you stay in that space. So you constantly got to be growing your mind. So physical wellness, growing your mind, mental wellness. Emotional wellness is the third component that I talk about. And that is where I'm talking about, again, if you need to talk to somebody, you need to make sure that your agency has the infrastructure that allows people to talk and get the help that they need emotionally. But deeper than that, when I talk about emotional wellness, you as an officer need to have things that you like to do that aren't the job.
For sure.
And what I see too often is, we're just so busy with the job and the family that we cut out the things that we like to do in life. Fishing, hiking, like nature is so good for you. So fishing, hiking, bike riding, whatever it is, you need to make sure that you're engaging in positive emotional outlets. So that's part of it. But the other side of it is you need to make sure you're avoiding those negative emotional outlets. Man, if you, let's say it was a crash, you got dispatched to a crash and there was a kid in the crash that died, and, the mom was there and it was just a traumatic event. If you go home, like, you should go on a walk, or if you like to fish, go fish, or, you should have some kind of healthy outlet for that. Unfortunately, too often we see people go home and they sit in their lazy boy and they flip on the TV and they pour that scotch and they sit there and they sip away their problems. And that becomes the outlet. And again, man, that road. And I'm not a teetotaler. I'm not advocating for prohibition by any stretch of the imagination. But when that becomes your outlet for that stress and trauma of the job, man, that is a road that ultimately is going to cause you problems. Mm-hmm. And you just need to make sure that you're making more positive deposits into your emotional well-being than you are negative withdrawals from it. And then finally, relationships. Too often we isolate ourselves, and we don't have friends. We don't have, we isolate ourselves from our families. I'm talking extended families, brothers and sisters, and like people that, people that we should be able to count on, people that we should be able to confide in. Too often we bear this job and the stress of this job alone. And, we just need to make sure that we're nurturing those relationships around us so that you do have that support network. So those are the four components I talk about when I talk about wellness and whole person wellness, and making sure that we're taking care of our people. And as leaders, executive leaders, well, I say executive leaders, as leaders at any level. Again, I believe that the most important leader of any organization is the first line leader. Usually it's that shift sergeant. As leaders, we should be building cultures where all of that is stressed, where people are able to excel or at least participate in those areas, and that we're promoting that. If you do that, if you're intentional about promoting that on your shift, promoting that in your department or in your agency, man, you will see a culture change. Let me go back to Independence. When I was up at Independence, I go up and visit Independence. They push wellness really, really hard. So the food prep was just part of it, but they do workouts. They put a gym in, they got a cold plunge, they got a sauna, they got all kinds of stuff in there. And they allow their people to do a lot of this stuff on their times, because it's a lot to ask for people to come back and come back after work to do this stuff. So they've figured out how to allow people to do this on shift. Agencies all around them are having strength personnel manning issues. Yeah, they're down in staff. Their chief is like, look, I've got a line of people waiting to get in here. And like we don't pay as well as some of the surrounding agencies, but I still have a line of people who want to come work at this agency. And that's because they built a culture that is mission driven. They focus on the mission of protecting the people that they serve and protect, but they also take care of their people. And it's a really good place to be. And every agency should be able to build that. Let me tell you this. If you're a sergeant and an agency that doesn't promote that, you're a shift sergeant and an agency that doesn't promote this type of culture, and you can still promote that on your shift. Like you just need to step up and lead in this area. And you're going to have to don't fall victim to, if you're in an agency that has a negative culture, man, don't let them pull you down. Don't let that culture pull you down, man. Stand up. Leadership is both vertical and it's lateral, man. Be a lateral leader. Lead the people that you're in charge of. But even, let's say you're not even a sergeant. Let's just say you're on a shift of 10 people. And like you can lead those people. You can be like, hey, you want to work out? Hey, you want to do this? Hey, I packed my lunch. Like you could be a wellness leader in that space and at least help influence your area of influence.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think it's so difficult for some senior leaders, chiefs in those positions to understand this and to really, grasp the importance of these things?
Yeah, it's the tyranny of the immediate. We are so busy putting out the fire that's right in front of us. And unfortunately, man, there is a lot to take care of. Sure. Policy and problems and relationships and the city council and unfortunately, we get blinded by all of the white noise around us. Now, I'm not saying that stuff's not important. Again, the first time you don't take care of something that needs to be taken care of, man, you get fried. I get that. But we have to just step back and be intentional. It's almost like what came first, the chicken or the egg. What I found is this: if you actually are intentional about building a winning culture, again, and wellness is such a big part of that. If you build that culture, a lot of the stuff that you're having to react to takes care of itself. You're proactively influencing it on the front end. What I found is in a lot of agencies where they're just going from fire to fire to fire to fire to fire, there's nothing proactive. A lot of those fires could have been snuffed out early on if we would have just been proactive in some space. And again, I would like to say, like, that's easy for me to say because I've never been a chief. But man, I lead an agency of 4,000 people. I see this. I've got a good team. I've got a good team that handles a good part of my team handles the admin side of the job. They love it. They're taking care of that. But then we're also proactive in these other areas as well. And we're pushing and we're messaging. And again, leader, you got to set the example. You got to set the example. Yeah, it hurts. It's uncomfortable. It's all of those things, man. But you should be out there setting an example.
So you're the leader. So what do you do to take care of you?
So I try to focus every day on getting something in. So really in those 4 areas, I try to maximize my time. So I drive a lot. I'm on the road a ton. So I try to listen to a lot of audiobooks, a lot of podcasts, really centered around leadership, really centered around building winning cultures. I'm constantly reading in my spare time. I try not to veg in front of the TV too much. I'll watch a little bit, but I try not to get sucked down into social media holes or sucked down into, and I'll try to actually step aside and actually do some reading. And again, my reading is a lot of it's personal development or professional development type stuff, but then a lot of it's just knowledge type stuff too. I'm trying to challenge them. I'm trying to teach myself Spanish. So that's part of like stimulating my mind as well. And then the other thing that really works for me is, man, I love feeding into the people around me. I really do. And, I get a lot of energy from the people that I interact with. So I like that part of it. But again, you asked me what I do. Well, this morning I got up at 4:30 in the morning and I drove an hour and a half to be at the gym with our state trooper defensive tactics instructors, because we're trying to start something that we call Throwdown Thursdays. And we're trying to incentivize and encourage our troopers to do more in the defensive tactics. So we're not ordering them to do it, but we're trying to incentivize them to do it. We're going to pay, we're doing a pilot where we pay an hour of overtime for anybody who comes to this Thursday morning session. And the defensive tactics instructors will teach specific things. So I've been talking about the importance of this, but more importantly, like I'm there on the mat. I was there on the mat this morning, sweating it out, and again, I got cuts on my chin and taking the lumps that come with it. So I try to put my money where my mouth is. And I go over and PT with them. I'll constantly go over and challenge them to push-up challenges. And again, they may beat me, but at least I'm showing up. I'm at least showing up. So it's all part of, again, just trying to walk the walk in addition to just talking the talk. Do I fail? Absolutely. And here's the thing, leaders, you're going to fail. That doesn't define you. That certainly doesn't define you. And you can't let that fear of failure hold you back. But at least we're there. At least we're there, and at least we're fighting it out. So
what should that leader do if they're like, hey, we need to get started with this? What's the first step?
I think that the first step is finding your champions. So in your agency, finding your champions who are going to lead this. You have people in your agency who will be passionate about this. So you need to find them, and then you need to listen to them. That actually, probably the first step is to talk to your people and listen. Where are we failing? What could we do better in the wellness space? What would you like to see that would make us healthier physically, mentally, emotionally? And how can we do that? Now, I haven't talked about this a lot. I think when we talk wellness, a lot of agencies, 10, 15, 20 years ago, like wellness wasn't a thing. It was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. We weren't taking care of our people. If you were involved in something traumatic, you basically rub some dirt on it, get back out there as part of the job. You basically need to man up.
I call it the suck it up culture.
Yeah, suck it up culture. That's what it was. Now, we moved away from that. I think the profession has done a pretty good job of moving away from that and into what I'll call reactive wellness. So if there's a critical incident, we have members assistance teams, we have peer support, we have critical incident stress management. We've done we've done a much better job in that space and addressing that and basically tearing down some of that stigma and saying it's okay to be not okay. You need to go talk to somebody. So I think we've done a much better job of that. And I think agencies across the board are doing a good job of addressing that. Where I think we continue to fail is what I call proactive wellness. And that's where we're intentional about doing things on the front end to address mental, physical, and emotional wellness. And I'm telling you, man, just like I already said, if we put those tools into our agencies, tools that allow people the proper off-gassing techniques, and make them physically, mentally, emotionally healthier, these back end problems are going to fall into place, man. There's no doubt about it. So you need to listen. You need to talk to your agency, talk to the people in the trenches about what they want to see or what they want, and truly listen. Then find your change agents, find people who are passionate about it, and start to put together a plan that addresses all of those areas. And you got to think outside the box. The other thing is this: for our leaders, for our executive leaders, you have got to understand the importance of this so that you can sell it to your council, you can sell it to your county commission, you can sell it to your policymakers, and you got to be able to market to them the importance of this, and you got to figure out what their language is. Is it reduced health benefit costs? Is it reduced sick time? Is it, what is going to be your language that you're going to use with the people who ultimately are going to support you or help fund this, or at least give you the space to set the culture that you want to set?
Mm-hmm. This has been fascinating. This has been awesome material for anybody listening, and I really appreciate what you're talking about and what you're doing there. I think any state would be lucky to have someone like you at the helm leading the public safety department. So congratulations on that.
Hey, thank you very much. And listen, if anybody out there listening from other states or any leaders from other states just want to talk, man, you can find me here through the Ohio Department of Public Safety. If you come through our communications office, that's probably the best way to get a hold of me. Just shoot me an email, and I'll talk about it. We'll kind of work through some of these issues. I will say this, and you and I talked about this a little bit before we went on camera. Leadership is everything. Whether or not your agency is succeeding or failing is directly related to the strength of the leaders in your agency. It may not be the executive leader by itself. Really, it's probably the first line leaders. So as executive leaders, it's our job to set an environment or conditions where our first line leaders can thrive and they can lead the way that we want our agency led.
Good stuff. We're going to leave it there. Andy, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your leadership. And thank you for also taking care of you and setting that example.
Thank you very much. It's been great. I appreciate it.
Andy, thank you for joining us today and for the leadership you're showing in Ohio. To all of our listeners, if you're a leader who wants to move past the suck it up culture and build a protective wellness culture, start by listening to your people and finding champions. Then start small and be sure to measure the progress. If Andy's ideas have resonated with you, subscribe to the podcast, share this episode with a leader in your agency, and visit the show notes for links and resources. If you want to contact Andy, reach out via the Ohio Department of Public Safety Communications Office. And finally, please remember that you are not alone. And if you need someone to talk to and don't know where you can turn, you can dial 988 for help. Until next time, be well, take care of yourself and those around you, and go out and do something great in the world.